With the best brand of football in Idaho, this is the 8-Man Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.
That's right. A season begins anew here on IdahoSports.com. Welcome in to the debut episode, season 3, if you can believe it, of the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast right here on IdahoSports.com. The Idaho 8-Man Prepcast this season is brought to you by Ideal, Idaho's college savings program. It's a college savings plan designed to help individuals and families save for college in a tax-advantaged way. It offers advantages like tax-deferred growth, generous contribution limits, attractive investment options, and professional investment management. Ideal is offered by the Idaho College Savings Program Board, with program management by a Census Broker Dealer Services Incorporated and investment management by the Vanguard Group. The savings portfolio is managed by Sally Mae Bank. This is basically the best resource if you are a student in high school. And so big thanks to Ideal, Idaho's college savings program, for hopping on and being a sponsor this year of the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast. My name is Brandon Baney, but really the people you want to hear from patiently waiting backstage are our 8-man experts. Let's bring them in. First, you know him as the owner/operator of the Idaho 8-Man X account. It is our own Will Hoenike. Will, hello.
Two things. Can you own something that's free? I'm not one of those paid Twitter members. And number two, is that an Idaho State shirt?
Yes, it is.
What are your Montana peeps going to think about that?
Oh, yeah. Believe me. We're going to talk about the University of Montana coming up on the show. We'll get to it. I got this shirt because when I lived in Pocatello, I did some work for Idaho State University broadcasting. So I basically have a rotation of shirts in the closet, and this was the next one up. So
see, I went to Washington State. That's where I graduated from. You would never catch me dead in another former Pac-10 school shirt. Cal, Stanford, UCLA, doesn't matter. Wouldn't wear it.
Well, now my fan base is going to turn on me, Will, so I appreciate that. Let me see if I can backpedal out of this. Here's a guy who built up a pretty good fan base over the years. We are so delighted to have him back for a second consecutive season here on the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast. Longtime head coach at Carey, now is enjoying the view from the crow's nest on Friday nights at Carey High School. It is Coach Lane Kirkland. Coach Kirkland, hello.
Hey, how we doing, fellas, fans, players? Another great season ahead of us. Thank you for the invite back to the show. Hope to make some great contributions this year and keep the excitement growing here for the 8-Man Prepcast.
The contract negotiations were lengthy, but unlike the Dallas Cowboys and CeeDee Lamb, we were able to come to an agreement, Coach Kirkland.
Yeah, hopefully I can double my pay and maybe get 2 hats from Paul this year. I'll put in a request for a bucket Olympic track and field hat first there, Paul. Okay.
All right. Demands already laid down here on the show. It's going to be a great time. Hey, something new we're trying this year, guys. We are doing this live. So mind your P's and Q's. I wanted to see if we would get
live
more,
right now.
Yes. I wanted to see if we would get more interaction from our 8-man fan base. And already, look at this, guys. Wallace Miners Athletics says, let's go Miners. So we're going to be talking about Wallace coming up here in just a second, because the sky is the limit for Wallace this year. It's going to be a lot of fun. So sorry, I thought I told you guys that sometime during the off season, but I guess that slipped my mind.
Might have slipped mine too. I don't know.
Well, good thing this show is built on a sturdy foundation of trust. Here we go. Well, let's get right into it. What are the changes this year in Idaho 8-Man football? Right off the bat, we got to get used to these new names. It's no longer 1A D2, 1A D1. It's now 1A and 2A respectively. So let's just start with the 2A programs, and then we'll work our way down to Idaho's 1A teams this year. But before we get to the league by league breakdowns and teams we're keeping an eye on this year, let's talk about the postseason. Yeah, here we go. 5 minutes into the first show of the year, I'm already peeking ahead at those brackets, guys. You know how I am.
That's how you roll, man. That's it.
Big changes to the 2A bracket this year. In years past, there had been a certain number of allotted bids for each district, kind of meeting that representation Most leagues got at least 2 bids, and then there were only a handful of at-large bids available given to the teams that had the best Max Preps rankings. And what happened was you had some really good teams that probably would have gotten in via Max Preps ranking that were on the outside looking in. That has been changed. The only thing that's guaranteed now in the 2A postseason are the top 4 seeds will go to the 4 conference champions. Other than that, and they'll all have first-round buys. Other than that, seeds 5 through whatever, the next 8 seeds will be determined all via the Max Preps ranking. So, Coach Kirkland, I'm going to go to you first on this. Do we like this change, or did we like it better the way it was?
I have always felt like the conference champions earned their right to be first place. I'm not really a fan of a bye. I always like playing straight through to keep the motor hot and rolling. But it will make it interesting for those teams to get a week's rest and then go stir crazy the next week while they watch the other 8 fight it out. And cross-bracketing like that, or whatever it ends up being, according to a Max Preps ranking, will keep it interesting and probably level the playing field across the board, and we'll see how it shakes out, and hopefully nobody gets left out this year.
Will, what do you think about this new tweak to the postseason?
I don't know if indifferent is quite the right word. I'm with Coach on let's protect those conference champions and league champions. I'm all aboard on that. I still haven't really been able to wrap my mind around the fact that we're relying on a mathematical formula that no one knows to determine the remainder of the team. So it's fine. I think that generally it comes pretty close, and hopefully going straight with the 4 conference champions and then straight to at large, and not a second team from District X or a second team from District Y. Hopefully that eliminates some of the confusion going forward.
Yeah, I love crunching the numbers and doing that math, trying to figure out the Max Preps rankings. I do think ultimately get us closer to getting the 12 best teams into the field. Ultimately, the best team there was in 2A football last year, Howard Wood in the chat, the Butte Pirates, hoping for another great season. And guys, that's where we're going to start our 2A season previews, because we got to start with the champs. Butte County won the title for the first time in its history. I don't think the town of Arco has stopped celebrating ever since. It was a monumental accomplishment. They beat Oakley in the championship game. When you add in all of the drama that was happening off the field with Dylan Waymeyer, who suffered a near-death experience on the sidelines at the Kendrick Butte County game in the middle of the season, had been in the hospital for months, was able to be in the dome over in Pocatello for that championship game in a wheelchair. And then when Butte County won the championship, he was able to stand up out of the wheelchair and hold up the trophy. I mean, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. The question is, do they have the pieces in place to run it back? And on the surface, I would say yes. But just looking at this conference, the High Desert Conference, it's just a 2-team affair. It's Butte County, it's Grace, no more Chalice. They dropped down to 1A. We'll talk about them later on in the show. Coach Kirkland, my question is, I mean, does it really matter who? I mean, it matters to the 2 schools because they're rivals, but I feel like I'm not going out on a limb here saying that, yeah, Butte County and Grace are probably both going to be in the playoffs again this year.
Right. It's all about pride. They're not, towns are a little ways apart, but not, and I've been playing each other for a while and kind of gone back and forth, but it's just bragging rights. And I think the winner would like to put a check next to that game and go forward throughout the rest of the season. But either way, both teams probably are going to end up in the playoff scenario. But to position yourself and get by is probably a good goal.
Yeah, Will, the final game of the season, the last couple of years has been Grace and Butte County. And, when I was talking to Coach Sam Thorngren for the Pirates about their game with Logos coming up this weekend on IdahoSports.com, he basically said, yeah, after we played Logos in the semifinals last year, they asked us, hey, would you mind playing us again next year? And we said, heck yeah, we've only got 1 team in our conference, so we've got lots of open dates on the schedule. We'll fill you in wherever need be. Let's talk about this Butte County team more in general, though, because they did lose Brody Westergaard, who was kind of like their Swiss Army knife. He did a lot of different things for that offense, but man, they bring back Keaton Archibald at quarterback. They bring back Razor Duke, who's going to be the new Brody Westergaard. They're going to move him all over the field. They bring back Rawson Twitchell. They bring back some really good alignment up front. All those guys also chip in on defense. I mean, this Butte County team is going to be pretty potent again.
Yeah, I think the two names that you mentioned, Razor Duke and Rawson Twitchell, that's probably Exhibit A and Exhibit B, why I think that they probably wind up getting to check the box as the conference champion. I think that, and a lot can happen between now and October 25th, right? But I think both Butte County and Grace have holes to fill. I think that Butte County, with guys like Twitchell and guys like Duke and bringing Keaton Archibald back at quarterback, I think they check them a little bit better than Grace does, but I fully expect Grace to be a good team. Braden Kimball, I think, is a really good running back, a nice piece for them at running back and linebacker. But you take out Joe Clegg and Kai Clegg, those were two very key players for them last year. And they're going to need some people to step up along those, like we're talking like defensive ends and guards and stuff like that, where they're going to have to plug some holes. And I'm sure that they have some guys that will do it. And I'm sure that they'll be a competitive, good football team. But, Butte County, they're just one of those teams. You can almost write them in ink. You don't list them out in terms of they will be the team X or team Y. But if you're writing down playoff teams at the beginning of the year, I think they're one of the teams in 2A. I'm comfortable right now putting them in ink. They're going to be a playoff team, and they're going to have a say in who, they might take that trophy. They might keep it with them for another year. You know what I mean? They've got a good football team.
And Gavin Draper's a big, strong kid at quarterback for Grace as well. Coach Kirkland, I want to ask you, because Grace did lose the Clegg boys up front on the offensive and defensive lines. As a coach, would you rather go into a season knowing you have to replace some ball handlers like Butte County does with Westergaard? Or would you rather go into a season knowing, okay, I got to find some new offensive and defensive linemen up front?
If you don't have blockers, you don't go very far. But sometimes the running backs don't need much blocking either. They're pretty high quality. So you get a mix of that, and you can bounce back and get back in the groove. Early on in the season and mid-season, I think you'll probably hit the ground running. Just a compliment to Sam, I really like some of the things that Sam said about his team and in leadership and making sure that this team is focused without the motive that they had last year and just going off of Butte County pride. I've always felt like winning a championship gives a coach 3 years additional experience because they are able to see that mission fulfilled and the vision is out in front. And if his kids will pick up on that and he can convey it and lead them, they'll have another successful run at the title to defend it.
Yeah, Butte County and Grace are both going to be really talented. Both of them will be featured this weekend on IdahoSports.com. Here's Joel Richardson, one of our IdahoSports.com broadcasters. He's ready for 8-man. Oakley versus Grace, Butte versus Logos. Joel is going to be on the call for Oakley at Grace Friday night, 7 o'clock on IdahoSports.com. And then Saturday at 4 o'clock at Homedale, neutral site game between Butte County and Logos, our first ever IdahoSports.com Gem State Game of the Week. This is going to be a bigger production, multiple cameras, enhanced graphics. We're going to have a sideline reporter. We're going to be pestering the coaches on the sidelines. It's going to be a big production. And so, Will, Logos and Butte County, you're going to be there to be part of that broadcast. I can't think of a better way to kick off the season.
That's a great matchup to start things up. You got a Logos team that we'll talk more about coming up in a minute, but they lose Jack Driscoll, but return a lot of really good football players. I think they're kind of under a lot of people's radar at the moment. In Butte County, I just told you they're front and center in mind when it comes to 2A. I think that they're going to be one of the last probably 4 teams standing in the classification as long as they stay healthy.
All right, so let's shift then over to District 4, the Snake River Conference, and let's talk about it, where Oakley did get to the championship last year and tried to pull off the really rare 4-peat, couldn't quite do it. But coming back into the season, they do have to replace quite a bit, but they, still got the respect of the coaches in our preseason coaches poll. They ended up tied for first in our preseason poll of the coaches, along with Murtaugh. Hagerman was picked third. Rat River and Valley were picked to tie for fourth, and then Glens Ferry was picked sixth. We'll get to Oakley in a second, but Coach Kirkland, I think we got to start with Murtaugh. How about the Devils getting the tie for first in our preseason poll? They did lose a lot. Junior Benitez, the all-state running back, their coach, Todd Jensen, he was the AD as well. He's now coaching boys basketball at Butte County, of all places. So they've got a new coach in Chad Young. The offense will probably look a little different. It's probably going to be more quarterback-based with Sawyer Young back at that position. But how about Murtaugh getting some love in the preseason poll?
Yeah, I recall last year kind of picking them to do some great things, and they did their best. Now here they are being honored by their whole class as the lead dogs here. So maybe there'll be some new enthusiasm with Coach Young there. I mean, Todd left them in a good situation. There's some great kids left there in a lot of numbers. So we'll see if they can pull that off and stay focused and stay healthy, which has been an issue for those guys over the years.
Yeah, we'll see if Murtaugh continues the ground and pound that they were known for under Coach Jensen, or, new coach, maybe try and change the style up a little bit. But
they could go ground and pound in the context of you've got a really athletic and mobile quarterback in Sawyer Young, and you got a pretty good running back in Brody Funk there. You can run just some option schemes, if you will, and play your matchups and see where your gap is. And I saw Murtaugh with my own eyes one time last year, and it was against Glens Ferry, and they lose some linemen that they'll have to fill in some holes there. But that line that they had last year just dominated Glens Ferry and blew open just some gaping holes. And I think the three of us could have run through them. So if Murtaugh is able to replace and fill those gaps and those holes, like Oscar Roberto is gone as well. I think with Sawyer Young and Brody Funk, those two young men give them a good shot coming out of the gate to be a pretty explosive offense again.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And then let's talk about Oakley. They do bring back Dallin Hardy, anchor on both lines. But all those names we were used to calling over the past couple of years, Robinson, Duncan, Severe, Bench. I mean, they're all gone, Will. But the nice thing is for Oakley, how many times have we seen on the sideline, good numbers and that next wave ready to step up when their name is called.
Yeah, and I think the thing that they have this year is the guys that they have coming back, like Dallin Hardy and Porter Brigham and some of those guys, they're strong defensively. I think the core of their defense is going to be really strong. And that's going to buy the offense a little bit of time to fill some of those holes, Severe and Cooper Beck and some of those guys that were such big dynamic playmakers for multiple years, going back 2, 3, 4 years. That was a really, really explosive class. And I think the defense is going to allow the offense to kind of find their footing a little bit. Jackson Rice is back. He's healthy. He should be good to go at quarterback. That'll be a help. He's just a sophomore, didn't play a ton last year before he got hurt. But he's got some experience and he's obviously got some talent. I think that their ability to control the line of scrimmage on defense is really going to help the offense because they won't have to score 50, 60 points a game in order to win.
Yeah, let's take a look at Hagerman. They were picked to finish third in our preseason coaches poll. Coach Kirkland, this was a Final Four team last yeyear at the 1A level. Now they're moving up to the 2A level, and they bring back, almost everybody. They do lose their fullback, Wyatt Hoskevek, and, a key offensive lineman up front. But, man, Kai Kendall is back. He put up over 2,500 yards last year of combined rushing and receiving yardage. Wyatt Mavenkamp, the quarterback, is back. And they've got a veteran coach in Bill Hicks, who's been around the block a time or two. This is a Hagerman team that a lot of people are bullish on this year, making the jump up.
Yeah, this team is definitely on the rise, and the community's regaining enthusiasm that they had back in 2013 with that group that went all the way. And those kids are big. They're strong. They live in the weight room, and there's some good ones coming in as well. There's a young Knight kid that we coached against him in junior high last year that's phenomenal. And so there's some depth, I think, that's coming with them. I think the key for Hagerman will be playing with the big boys and being prepared and organized each week for stuff that's going to come their way that they may not have seen at the smaller division. But I think all in all, they're gonna hold their own and surprise a lot of people.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like pick your poison. Okay, do you defend Kai Kendall? Well, then you risk letting Martin Gonzalez run free, and he's got speed to burn, or Seamus Merrill, or there's just so many weapons for Hagerman on offense.
Yeah, and they can play some defense too. Coleman Pierce, a middle linebacker, pretty good ball player, and those other kids that play both ways. It's a pretty balanced team, and they should be competitive right out of the chutes.
All right, well, let's talk about the Valley Vikings here. Here's Ryan, Angie McAfee in the chat. Valley is the sleeper in that conference. Yeah, I was surprised they weren't picked a little higher in our coaches poll. They noticed too, guys. We've already provided some bulletin board material. The Valley Vikings X account took a screenshot of our preseason coaches poll, and they put, "The coaches have spoken," and they said predictions. I guess we'll go ahead and play the full schedule and see what happens. Coach Kirkland, how much do you buy into the bulletin board material fueling the team?
Oh, that's just fun stuff to read there. Everybody's flexing behind the screen. I love it. But that's great motivation. And to post that, it will be great motivation for the Valley Vikings. Those guys have, I think, I did a little bit of math, but the most experience in years with their staff all added all together, probably close to 100 years. So there's some experience there in those guys to try and get the job done. And some good kids that are finally old enough now and have gotten a lot of experience and been beat up over the last few years, but are gaining some steam. And I think that they're ready to take a stand in this conference.
Yeah, well, Valley kind of took their lumps, had some on-the-job training with some young classes. Sure. This is Coach Brian Ayers' second tour of duty with the Valley program. It starts with Josh Hardy, right? He could easily go for 1,000 yards rushing, 1,000 yards passing this year at the quarterback position. Yeah,
I'll be surprised if he doesn't. He's very elusive running the ball, and when you got guys like Pedro Robles and Tegan Rosenborough to throw to, they're going to hit a lot of chunk plays this year as long as they're able to defend the chunk plays. They're a team I could see playing a fair amount of like 60-40 type football games, coming out on the plus side of them more often than not, because I just think they're just explosive, really, really explosive on offense. And if they can just be okay defensively, they don't need to be dynamic, they don't need to be the steel curtain, they don't need to be Buddy Ryan's 46 defense. They just need to mix in some stops, make teams really work to move down the field, and I think the Valley offense will take care of the rest. And I'm with you there. If they're not, in my mind, if they're not top two in this conference when it's all said and done, something probably went haywire. Somebody got hurt, something happened, because you've seen it building. This is like the third year now. You've seen it coming, and I think this is the year that they turn the corner and get back to where they were before they bumped up to 11-man football a few years ago.
Yeah. A couple more comments dropping in here. Here's Lacey Thorngren, Butte proud all the way. Hey, we talked about Butte County at the top of the show. I don't know if you saw that or not, Lacey. So don't think we're ignoring Butte County. We already said all those nice things about the Pirates. So as a reminder, if you weren't here live to watch this, you can always go back and watch a replay of this on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, and X account. How about this one from Kirk Craner? We love Coach Kirkland. There we go. Getting some love, Coach Kirkland.
Hey, Kirk. How you been, buddy?
No one loves me, apparently.
Yeah.
Once a Hornet, always a Hornet.
Yep. All right. Well, let's wrap up the Snake River Conference. Raft River uncharacteristically missed the playoffs last year. Chad Evans, great coach. They just dealt with a lot of injuries and just kind of a down cycle overall. I'd be very surprised if they weren't in the mix again this year. And then, it's not like we think Glens Ferry is going to be bad, but this is just such a good conference. Somebody has to finish in last place. It's just the way it goes. But man, if Glens Ferry was in a lot of other leagues, they'd be right there.
Yeah, they've got some talented players. Josiah Valencia, the linebacker and running back, really nice player. They graduated a couple of of nice pieces, but they bring some good ones back too. And I think you're right. It could be something where if you drop them in the Western Idaho Conference, or if you drop them, put them over in Eastern Idaho with Butte County and Grace. They're a pretty good team, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if there is one Friday night when we come back around the following week for this 8-man podcast where we're saying, see, we told you. We told you they could play a little bit. But you are right. There is a team that unfortunately is going to have to finish behind in this league. I'm not 100% sold it's Glens Ferry, but your point is valid. Your point is valid. They're the team that I think has the most ground on paper to make up going into the season.
And Coach Kirkland, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention Lighthouse Christian. No football program this year. Numbers were low. New coach, I believe it's their third coach in 3 years, basically taking a group of junior high kids and said, we're just going to play junior high football. We're going to move with them through the ranks, try and build this program back up, which is a shame because A, Lighthouse has been pretty good the past couple of years, and B, they've got that beautiful turf field sitting there.
Yeah, can we roll that up and move it to some other location? Paint it. Yeah, it's too bad the Lions are going away. They have been good contenders over the year and great competition. I think they'll rebuild it. It's going to take a little while, and you got to get the right people infused there. And I think they're on their way, but it's going to be a few years.
For sure. Here you go, Will. Scott Burton, our great Magic Valley Prepcast host. I love me some Will Hoenike.
Then why won't you respond to my texts?
All right. Well, before we devolve any further, let's go up north.
Eric Estrada fan.
What's that?
Scott Burton loves him some Eric Estrada.
What is that? Chips? That's
Yep. Arthur Poncherelli or something like that.
way before my time. But let's go north to the White Pine League, where the big storyline is Kendrick moving up. They go from the 1A ranks to the 2A ranks, still gets the nod of respect, even though they're the new team in the new league. They were picked to finish first in our preseason coaches poll. Now, I will note it was very hotly contested. Logos was picked second. They were separated by only a couple of points in our voting system. Prairie was picked third, Kamei fourth, Potlatch 5, Clearwater Valley 6, Lapwai 7, Troy 8. Coach Kirkland, Kendrick getting the nod in the preseason poll as the new team. I think that says a lot about where their program's at.
Yeah, not surprised, but because they're deep everywhere, and there's a lot coming back, and they've been playing in that league really through 2 or 3 games a year for quite a few years and proven themselves, and so that is a great amount of respect to them and Coach Hobart and rebuilding and replacing some of the great kids they had this last year. But I know that tradition never graduates, and it's going to keep going, and someone will have to stop them. And Logos may be that team. 40 players on a Logos team, that's a lot to work with, and that's awesome. A lot of seniors on that team too.
Yeah, Will, that raised a few eyebrows from some of the other White Pine League members when they saw that Logos had 40 kids out, and they said, what now?
Yeah, and these are a lot of kids. A lot of people assume that it's a recruiting thing, and we're cherry picking a couple kids out of Genesee and Deary and maybe some Moscow kids that aren't excelling at Moscow High, but it's really not. These are kids that have been going to school together since like 3rd grade, and there's something to be, Coach, you can speak to this much more than I can, but there's something to be said for, talent is great, but having that continuity, having that knowledge, having that understanding of exactly what the guy next to you is going to do on any given play, that's not necessarily something you can coach, and it can make a huge difference in crunch time.
Yeah, I watched those guys play Butte County, and I was very impressed with how they rallied together. They are one. They entered the field together. They left the field together, and I've seen them at track. Our tent's been next to theirs in state track quite a few years. And what they do it well, and they're rallying people to their command. And it could be a clash of the Titans up there between them and Kendrick. Should be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun for sure. Kendrick brings back Sawyer Hewitt, the all-state running back. Really, the success for Kendrick over this run, I have thought, has been their offensive and defensive lines. Carson Hogan and Brock Boyer are both back to anchor both sides of the line. They've got a few options at quarterback. We'll see what they go with, but they've got a lot of young skill players. Here's Blake in the chat. He says, new set of young guns at Kendrick. They shared half the minutes with the starters and still put up the numbers. They beat all the playoff teams we've talked about and everyone from North Idaho. And how about this? The previous 1A D1 teams refused to play them. I don't know if they refused to play them. I mean, the White Pine League is an 8-team league, so you only have 1 or 2 non-con dates to work with, but they can't duck Kendrick now. They got to play him. They're in the league. So, we'll wait and see. Logos, meanwhile, they bring back just about everybody except Jack Driscoll, the do everything quarterback, but they bring back basically their offensive line, all the receivers, couple of options at quarterback for Logos. But I think the most important position or the most important player will be the son of head coach Nick Holloway, and that is Gunnar Holloway. A lot of times you want a coach's kid to be the quarterback. Not in this case. Gunnar is the center on offense and the middle linebacker on defense. Those are 2 pretty important leadership positions, Coach Kirkland.
Yeah, you've got to bring that back and replace Driscoll. And I think that that team has it, and I think they're going to really put on a good show this year. And they learned some things going deep into the playoffs last year and gained that experience. And the respect is obviously here now in second place as the selection there. And now it's proving time, going for number 1.
Yep. Prairie was picked 3rd in our preseason poll. Prairie has missed the playoffs the past 2 seasons under Coach T.T. Kane. It's not because of anything they did wrong. They just were, they should have been in the playoffs and weren't because of other districts getting other bids. But but for Prairie, it is a 2-year drought. Ryan Hasselstrom is back in the saddle though, Coach Kirkland, for his second stint as the Prairie head coach after a 2-year hiatus. I'll tell you what, optimism is high up there in Cottonwood this year. Dylan Uhlencott comes back as the bell cow running back on offense. And we know Coach Hasselstrom is going to have those boys ready to compete.
Yeah, I talked with Ryan at the state track meet and watched his Prairie guys just dominate everywhere on the track. Uhlencott, however you say that, sorry, buddy. But you're fast, man. He's a 3-time state champion in the relays. He got 3rd in the other event there. And Ryan was excited. Coach Hasselstrom is going to start a Prairie fire up there, and I think some things are going to start rolling again.
Yeah, and Will, if we look at the team right below them, Camei does bring back David Clute, who probably I would give the nod to as the best quarterback in the league coming into this season. They bring back some pretty good wide receivers, the Landmark kid and some good athletes, Crow, and they did lose, 2-way standout lineman Porter Whipple, kind of the heart and soul of that team, and then Colton O'Kane at running back. What do we make of this Camei team?
They're going to be interesting to see because they got a couple of big holes to fill, and I think Porter Whipple might be the biggest. That was a young man from his defensive tackle position that could just take over a game at any point in time. He was that good where he could just go shut another offense down by blowing up the middle of the line. He could chase the ball carrier down, and in the 8-man game in a small school game, it's really difficult to replace that kind of talent along the line. You can have big, strong kids, but that kid was just a great football player. And they've got another one in David Clute, who's an even better basketball player. And my bet is we're going to be hearing something here in the next couple months about him committing to play college basketball somewhere, which is kind of becoming a White Pine thing with all the Lapway kids. And now David Clute being a tremendous basketball player, but just a tremendous athlete. They'll be competitive, but they're really, really, really going to miss Whipple especially on the defensive line.
Yeah, back half of the White Pine, at least in our preseason coaches poll, Potlatch 5. They did lose Jack Clark and a couple of other standout skill guys. They bring back Waylon Marshall, though, and they bring back Jacob Keck up front on the offensive and defensive lines. I think Potlatch will be right there in the mix. Ryan Ball is a really good coach. Let's talk Clearwater Valley. The Rams have just been beset by injuries and just bad luck, Will, these past couple of years. And unfortunately, that trend is continuing already before we've even played a regular season snap.
Yeah, Carson Schilling, Tiago Pickering both hurt and you can, and coach, this is another thing, again, you can speak to in the 8-man game where you're leaning on your best guys both ways. You can't just pull 2 guys out of a lineup for an extended period of time and not feel the ramifications. I mean, Alan Hutchins, the head coach up there, he does a fantastic job. He'll piece it together, and they'll go out and they'll compete and they'll win some football games. But with those 2 players, I think we would have been talking about them much closer to the top.
Yeah, you can't replace those early injuries, especially to your dudes, and unless you got 40 kids on the team, and they've been trained up there. So hopefully they can hang on, and maybe those guys will get healed up and jump in here soon.
Yeah, our last 2 teams in the White Pine Lapway started a freshman, Jerice McCormick, at quarterback last year. He definitely opened some eyes. Troy has a senior quarterback in Makai Durrett, who's a fantastic catcher for that juggernaut baseball program that Troy's got up there. A good leader, tough dude. The question with both of those teams is numbers. Do they have enough kids that are coming out for the team? Troy, I know in particular, low numbers that they're working with this year. It's a very, very narrow tightrope that Troy is walking, but we'll see if those 2 can find their way into the upper echelons of the White Pine League. All right, that leaves 1 league left in the 2A ranks, guys, and that's over in District 3, the Western Idaho Conference, where, well, I'm just going to be honest about it. I mean, this has been a league that Notice has dominated the past several years. I don't anticipate that changing this year. Coach Joe Woodland's got another really good Notice team lined up.
Yeah, on paper, they look like the number 1 team pretty clearly. Bringing back Benny Guevara at quarterback, and also they get Gunnar Campbell back. He missed all of last season. He'll be a good player for them this year. They do have to replace a couple of pieces. The question for the past several years coming out of District 3 is, okay, you won the Western Idaho Conference. Can you translate that in the postseason? And that's going to be the important thing for Notice this year, to plug some of those holes. The guys like Easton St. Germain and some of those seniors that graduated from last year. Can you plug those holes, and can we now move the ship forward a little bit? I think they have a chance to. I certainly do, but I think that until they do it, or until somebody does it, whether it's Idaho City, Rimrock, whoever, until somebody does it, I think that that's going to be the black cloud hanging over the whole conference a little bit. Yeah, you may have gone 6-0 in conference, or 4-0 in conference, or whatever the number would be, but what did you do in the postseason? They're going to need somebody at some point to punch through.
Yeah, Coach Kirkland, I was going to ask you about this, where Notice has been to the quarterfinals the past 6 years. They haven't advanced to the semis in that time. As a coach, how do you get your players to not dwell on that? Or even as a coach yourself, how do you not dwell on that and think about that as it lingers in the back of your head?
Yeah, that's kind of a tough situation there. So someone on that team is going to have to say, not this year, not today, scenario, and get them to that, through that next game, to the next game and those semis. And I expect Notice to be at the top again. Consistency is always the key to success. And Coach Woodland has been there a while, and Coach Rober will contend in Idaho City. Those guys have been there for quite a while, and so it'll be a pretty good battle, I think, there. But in the end, I think Notice will be the victor.
For sure. Yeah, Idaho City, congratulations are in order for Jason Rober in his 10th season, in his second stint as the Wildcats coach, but also got a job promotion. He's the athletic director at Idaho City now as well. So congratulations to Coach Rober. He's going to be a busy guy this fall. They do bring back Trey Martini at quarterback and some good linemen up front. So Idaho City will be a feisty team to watch for sure. Maybe our favorite guy to cover, Will, plays at Rimrock, Ronaldo Gomez. He might be the most exciting player in all of 8-man football. He is the quarterback, defensive back, kicker, punter, kick returner, punt returner, drives the bus, makes the popcorn at halftime. He does it all.
Lined the field before the game, got the little chalker out there and everything. Yeah, he's really one of the best players in the state at his level that you don't hear much about, because I mean, they're literally out on a hilltop outside a mountain home. You don't get to see them that much. You don't get to hear that much about them. But I mean, make no mistake about it. This kid can play. He is a good football player. And if he stays healthy and they're able to put a few pieces around him, they might have a chance to challenge Notice there. They're going to need a few things to go their way, but they have some skill. Their problem, like, Troy and some of the other teams we've talked about, it's numbers. If they can get themselves up around 17, 18 healthy bodies, where they're able to go out every week and kind of beat on each other in practice and get ready to go with a player like Gomez to go out there, I think they have a chance to sneak on some people.
Yeah, and then numbers, that's been a problem at Wilder the past couple of years. They've got a new coach this year in Josh Duty. And then we've got this co-op between, last year it was Centennial Baptist, Gem State, and Greenleaf Friends. When I got the schedule earlier this summer, it just said Centennial Baptist and Gem State. No mention of Greenleaf Friends. They're the only school that's got a football field, so if they play, I assume it's going to be there. They had to fold after just 2 games last year due to low numbers. Wilder kind of incorporated them. And so I don't know. They're kind of a mystery. We'll see. I would love to see Centennial Baptist and Gem State have a team and put it together. Just historically, it hasn't really been there, but we'll hold out and see what we get from the Jaguars, Mustangs, whatever they're calling themselves this year. It'll be a lot of fun for sure. And that wraps up our 2A state preview, guys. We're going to take a break, catch our breaths, and get ready for the 1A ranks where, the old Carey Panthers are back in their old stomping grounds. We're going to have a chat about that and so much more when the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast continues right after a word from our sponsors at Ideal, Idaho's college savings program.
This year, help dreams come true with the Ideal Idaho 529 Education Savings Program. Our easy-to-use tools make it simple to plan for your child's education. With tax benefits, ownership flexibility, Ideal is the perfect way to save for college, trade school, K-12 education, and student loan repayment. Join us at our next webinar to learn more about the 529 plan. Enrolling takes just 15 minutes and you can start with just $25. Visit idsaves.org if you would like to learn more.
All right, welcome back to the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.
Coach, we catch you off guard there?
Hey, getting ready for the next hour here, man. Let's roll.
Yep, you missed it off camera. We were all doing stretches and chugging water and all sorts of fun stuff.
Yeah, so. I did a cartwheel.
Yeah.
Show off.
All right, well, this is our 1A season preview here, and changes to this postseason as well. Unlike in years past where we knew going into the season how many teams were going to get in from every league, and we knew where they were going to be placed on the bracket. It was all predetermined. It led to some funky things like Kendrick having to travel to Hagerman for that semifinal game last year. A couple of times we had, semifinal games that were played in the quarterfinal round and vice versa. And so here we go. This year, here's what's guaranteed. No more predetermined bracket. There are 5 conferences in the 1A ranks. So the 4 highest ranked conference champions, according to Max Preps, will all get that first round bye that Coach Kirkland loves so much. And then whoever is the 5th conference champion will have to play in the opening round, but they will get the lowest seeded team. And then the remaining qualifiers, seeds number 6 through number 12, will all be determined via Max Preps rankings. So this is strikingly similar to the 2A bracket here, Coach Kirkland. I assume you have the same opinion about this one?
Yeah. Well, those guys have earned their spots, and then Max Preps does their thing there, and it's a battle to get into that first round. And so it's what it is. You got to prove it anywhere you end up. And so let's just play football, and whosever idea it is every couple of years to do these brackets, let's just roll and play hard and do your best, guys.
I think the only thing I'll miss from it, Will, is the potential of some of those crazy tiebreakers where there's one play out. Like last year, Mackey, North Gem, and Water Springs all finished tied for second in the Rocky Mountain Conference. Well, only 2 teams got to go. So it came down to this crazy point differential system where Mackey went into the last game of the season having to basically win by, I think it was 8 points. If they had won by 6, it would have been tied, and we would have had to have gone to like a Kansas City playoff. And wouldn't you know it, they won by exactly 8 and won on that point differential. That'll go away under this new system. But that's the only downside I can think of.
Yeah, it's much the same as the 2A for me, and I'm with Coach. Protect those number ones; they've earned it. You played 8, 9 regular season games to earn that spot. let's try and take care of them and not sit them on a bus for 9 hours because they happen to fall in a weird line on the bracket. So I'm good with that. My Max Preps opinion is well stated, so we won't revisit that one.
For sure. Hey, here in the chat, we've got some of my North Idaho brethren here. Here's Sam Buffington. Greetings. Hey, Sam, good to see you. And Max Oswald, he is a fantastic sports writer at the Bonner County Daily Bee up there in Sandpoint. Everything you need to know about 1A Clark Fork football publishes tomorrow in the Daily Bee. 1,000 words. Former NFL player and 1981 Clark Fork High graduate Ron Heller is running the defense this year. 11 players strong. I mean, we don't like to hear 11 players.
NFLers in the North Star League. Who had that one on their bingo card, as the saying goes?
That's cool.
That's really cool.
Where's Van Der Esch? Let's go.
Yeah, I love the star power coming from the 8-man ranks. Hey, here's your boss, Lee J. Cook from Carey, ready for some 8-man for sure. Lee J does a great job there at Carey High School. Okay, let's start the conversation. I mean, I would normally start the conversation with the defending champion, but they're gone. Kendrick. Hagerman was a semifinal team from last year. They're gone. So I guess we'll have to start in the league that Kendrick used to own for so many years, the White Pine League. Let's start there in District 2, where this thing is wide open. Now that the 800-pound gorilla that's Kendrick is gone, who wins this thing? Deary was picked 1 in our preseason coaches poll, Lewis County 2, Genesee 3, Timberline 4. All 4 of these teams are very evenly matched. Coach Kirkland, is there a team specifically from those 4 that you've got your eye on this year?
I was looking over the Genesee roster there, and I saw some big numbers that are coming down from there, and saw a lot of senior heavy there, and coaches talking about 2 deep in the skill positions. So that they could really be a surprise there, but bringing the numbers is important there. It's been a while since Deary has shown his fangs, and I don't think tradition goes away. So I think they're hungry as well. So I'm kind of leaning towards both those teams to be the top there.
Will, what do you make of this White Pine League?
I mean, you got 4 teams, throw them in a hat, pull out the names 50 different times. You could, I mean, it's probably not mathematically possible, but you get 50 different combinations, I think that it's very possible that when it's all said and done, we're going to have 2 teams that are 2-1 and 2 teams that are 1-2. And it's going to be the matter of a couple of plays here and there that separates between a team, being the number 1 and the team being the number 4. Like Coach said, Genesee coming down with some numbers, a good sophomore class that gained a lot of experience, albeit in adverse circumstances last year. That's going to be a big help. Tim Olson at Deary, bringing back Dawson Bovard and TJ Bayer. That's 2 really good players to have coming back to play again. Lewis County with Monty Madrell, they've got some holes to fill. They had some key graduations last year. I have a hard time betting against him. When push comes to shove, he always seems to have a pretty good football team on the field. You know what I mean? So I don't know, roll the dice and just see what comes up. And I'm not going to be surprised. I don't think I'm going to be surprised whoever is the number 1 seed coming out of these 4 teams.
Yeah. Here's what I know about Lewis County. They're going to score a lot of points. They're going to give up some points. And Coach Monty Madrell is going to have a fantastic quip about the game to the Lewiston Tribune the next day.
Always does. And I forgot to mention Timberline of Weehype. They're going to be right there too. And they've got some numbers out this fall. Traditionally, they've been sitting at like 10 or 11 kids where you're a sprained ankle away from having to say thanks, we're done at halftime. And this year they look like they've got a little bit of depth out there, and they've got some skill, they've got some talent. I think one of the big things for them, Caleb Marshall stepping in at running back for Ryland West, who was just an absolute beast last year when healthy. They're going to be right there in the mix too. I didn't want to forget them.
Yeah. So if we can't start the conversation with Kendrick, they were the champs last year. We can't go to Hagerman, a semifinal team. I mean, let's go to the other 2 teams that were in the semis last year, Camas County and Rockland. We'll start with Camas County, the Mushers. They got all the way to the championship game. And so we'll go to the Sawtooth Conference next over there in District 4. The Mushers, despite being the defending runners up and the team that's been in control of this league the last couple of years, Camas County was only picked third in our preseason coaches poll. Carey was 1, Dietrich was 2, Camas County 3, Castleford 4, Hanson 5, and then Richfield and Shoshone each tied for 6th. Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot here, Coach Kirkland. Did you do some behind-the-scenes politicking to get Carey up to the top of this coaches poll?
Nothing was rigged. No, that's a good one. Thank you. I think it's just the respect again, and a good group of Carey kids coming back. There's 11 seniors on that Carey team, maybe more than any other senior group in that conference. And a great coaching again. And Coach Saley, this will be his 9th season as a Carey Panther coach and his 2nd as a head coach. So perhaps that respect came from the rest of the group in that direction, and maybe pick up the pieces from last year and set some higher goals and go for it.
And they play pretty good defense at Carey year in and year out, and that's the one thing that translates anywhere. Their offense will need to be a little bit more consistent than it was last year, have some success on the early downs, don't get caught behind the chains and whatnot. But I don't think them being picked 1 should really surprise anybody.
Yeah, I think really what separated it, if we're talking about Carey and Dietrich versus Camas, is the quarterback, right? Preston Wood is back for Carey. Connor Perkins is back for Dietrich. Those are 2 bankable quarterbacks that are going to make a lot of plays. Camas County has to replace their quarterback and Tristan Smith. And so this is kind of that juxtaposition that I was asking about earlier. Would you rather, as a coach, have to replace the skill guys or the linemen? Where Carey and Dietrich bring back some good skill guys, right? Brody Torgerson, Connor Perkins, Shaw, etc. For Dietrich. For Carey, you've got AJ Black, who's a good tight end, D end. You've got Preston Wood, Luca Quista Pace is a good guy as well for the Panthers. And then you look at Camas, and they lost the Smith twins, Tristan and Troy Smith. They lost Tyson Tupper. They lost, you name it. But they do bring back 2 of their 3 starters up front on that offensive and defensive line, Will. And I think that's a good starting foundation for the Mushers.
They lost that big senior class last year, and you mentioned the names, the big names, the one everybody recognized. And you just, you can't take a Troy Smith out of the lineup and not feel it. However, this is another big senior class for them. Coach mentioned that Carey has 11 seniors. I want to say Camas has 7 or 8. And, these are kids who got a lot of playing time last year. So maybe you didn't hear the name Xander Schofield as much because he wasn't doing it in the first half and he wasn't making it onto the TV highlights down at KMVT or whatnot. But, that kid's a pretty good football player. And you mentioned they got a couple of linemen back. They're a veteran team, even though you don't recognize the names. Those kids have some experience. They've got some experience in key spots. And if they can just, the guys like Schofield and whatnot who are going to step into spotlight roles, as long as they can just keep producing, then I think Camas is going to be fine. I really do. I think that they're going to be right there at the end of the day with Carey and Dietrich. I think those 3 separate themselves a little bit from the rest of the division. And, it gets a little bit interesting for Camas going forward because at a school that size, you can't just have 2 huge senior classes in a row go out without some repercussions down the line. I think that, they're going to have to rebuild some things starting next year. But I think what they have this year is more than enough to compete and be right there when it's all said and done to play some November football.
Yeah, and these top 3 teams are all working in still fairly new coaches. John Saili at Carey in his 2nd year. Dietrich has got a new head coach. Brody Estelle, who was the athletic director and football coach, actually took a job in my old hometown, guys, in Stevensville, Montana, of all places. So congratulations to Brody. His cousin, Garrett Estelle, is now the head coach. Just another Estelle. Garrett is now the head coach. It wasn't that long ago that he was playing for Dietrich. So that's
not at all.
Yeah, so he's going to coach there. And then first-year head coach for Camas County is Ben Walter, replacing Rusty Kramer, who retired in the offseason. Coach Kirkland, this is what I really liked about Coach Walter. He came into Camas, got the job in the spring, and said, okay, I'm holding a meeting for all the players, all the parents involved in the program. But he didn't say it was just for the high school kids. He said 5th grade all the way through senior year. I want you to come to this meeting. I want to lay out my vision for what this program's going to be. And for a small community like that to survive and thrive, I mean, that's what you have to do, right? You have to start at the youngest levels.
Right, and you've got to get them involved that early, and that coach has to see the vision there. Campus has always had good football coming up through the years. It disappeared for a little while, and now it's back. And I think Coach Walter has saw that vision there and wants to get everybody involved. And I think Campus will have another very competitive year. They're always feisty, always tough. And I heard they're getting lights. I'm not sure, which will be a new spark as well. That's kind of a fun thing for
night football in Fairfield in October. I'm guessing you're not going to be making those road trips, Coach.
I'm gonna go to a lot of these games. I'm excited for this season. I want to travel a little bit more this year, but I got a little bit of advice for these new coaches because there's a lot of them throughout the state. I don't know how many is there 10 throughout the state in 8-man football, and we hit the 10 mark.
I'll look here.
I don't know how many there are.
Probably close. Yeah.
So number one, you got to stay healthy. Don't kill your kids in practice. Save them for the games. Number two, keep your offense simple. Work with what you have and not with what you want. Take what you're given and do things with that. Number three, get your players in the right spot. Don't play any favorites. If they're your uncle, if they're your cousin, your nephew, your son, you got to get kids in the right spot. It doesn't matter, but get those kids playing there. See the big picture. And then number four, make sure the kids have fun and that you have fun. It's just a game. Then we'll see where the chips lay. But I think those top three teams, it's going to come down to who has the best defense.
Yeah.
And I like what Coach Durchee's done at Carey. Of course, I'm a favorite there, but he has proved it. He proved it last year in the big league. And I think they're gonna go wild and make some game tackles everywhere.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun watching those top three. And then, you talk about there's two new coaches at Hanson, Toby Lapp. Shoshone's got a new coach, and Mike Nunnally. He has coached at Marsing previously in the 11-man game. We'll see how he adjusts to the 8-man game. And then you got the two old dogs. Buck Hendren's been at Richfield for 10 years, and Brian Lowry at Castleford has been there for 8 years. I mean, Coach Lowry, Coach Kirkland, I know you and him talk a lot during the season. They were kind of like the diaper dandy squad last year. They had a lot of freshmen they were rolling out there, and now all those freshmen are experienced sophomores, right?
That'll be a good crew. If they're all still there, which I think they are, I think he'll continue to raise those kids, a diaper crew, whatever you call them there, and I think they're going to have a lot of fun because they were really good in junior high, and Brian's got those guys all in on everything they do there.
That's an old Dick Vitale thing, the former college basketball commentator. He'd always have his diaper dandy squad, the best freshmen in the country. So that's nice. Will, let's talk about Richfield. I think the big exciting thing there is they're playing a full varsity schedule for the first time in several years. They had played kind of a hybrid varsity JV schedule these past couple of years, but they got enough kids finally. They're going to give it a go.
Yeah, they've been working towards this for a while, and when Coach Hendren was submitting his information for the IdahoSports.com fall football preview, that was one of the things that he was most excited about. He's like, I'm excited to get out there and play some varsity football. Now he's a realist. Like, he knows he's got a good group of kids. He's got a little bit of size. He's got a little bit of experience, but he's like, there might be a time or two this year where we're over our skis a little bit. And he goes, the excitement is high. The energy is high. The kids are excited to be here. The Friday night lights, all that pizzazz and whatnot. They're just really excited to be going full bore at the varsity level this year, and not, the 1 week this and the next week that, or, a few years ago they weren't playing at all. So just to see them be able to get that team out on the field and make a go for it, I think the people in Richfield should be really excited.
For sure. A couple more comments here in the chat. Joel Richardson, agree on Carey. They hung with Grace until the second half last year in that playoff game. This year there'll be one or two with that experienced team. Our friend Max up there in Bonner County had a question. Wampus Cats are facing Lewis County this year. Are they a co-op? Yes. Highland High School, which is in Craigmont, they co-op with Nez Perce. They're both pretty close to each other over there in District 2, and they do form a co-op that's called Lewis County. So
football only, I believe, correct?
Yes, football only. They might do it for baseball now too. I can't remember, but yes, it's mostly, and then in basketball and volleyball, they kind of split and go their own ways. Hey, friendly reminder, everybody that's hanging out watching this in the chat tonight, if you could hit that like button or the subscribe button if you're on YouTube, and then share this when it's all said and done, that'll help everybody that wasn't able to tune in tonight find it a little easier tomorrow, because everybody wants to be well informed before the games actually kick off tomorrow night. So if you could hit that like button, that would be a huge help. That'll help everybody find it a little easier amongst all the other social media stuff going on. Okay, let's go to Rockland. They were the other semifinal team from a year ago, from the Rocky Mountain Conference over there in District 5 and 6. Our preseason poll had them tied with North Gem at the top. Chalice was third, Mackey fourth, Water Springs fifth. Rockland lost a huge piece in Teague Matthews, the do-everything quarterback who's now playing at Utah State. Coach Kirkland, how cool is that? A kid from Rockland going to Utah State to play college football.
That's amazing. Yep. And Teague's a great guy, and what an opportunity he has to do that, and his community to rally around him.
Now, his top two receivers from a year ago are both back, Aiden Radford and Abe Held. So whoever they're breaking in at quarterback is going to have some reliable targets to lean on.
Yeah, Xavier Parrish looks like he might be the guy, and head coach Jerry Hunter and he and Corey Hatch couldn't be more different in their public stating, in that Jerry Hunter's like, we're going to throw it around. We got a kid who can throw it. He's got a good arm. We got a couple good receivers. Let's take advantage. Corey Hatch says it could be 4th and goal from our own 1 where we have to go 99 yards and I'm running the football. I mean, that's just that they're just two very different, philosophically in that regard. But that Rockland team, I think, outside looking in, I think a lot of people are just going to assume, oh, Teague Matthews has gone 4,000 total yards. He had a hand in 55 touchdowns or something absurd like that. I think that there's a certain amount of people are just going to be like, oh, they're done. That's not the case. They should be a competitive team. They don't need one person to replace Teague Matthews. They just need the sum of the parts to fill in some of that vacancy. And I think it'll happen.
Coach Kirkland's ears perked up when you talked about how much North Gem loves running the football. We all know Coach Kirkland loves a good running game, and that's what North Gem does. If they go into a game and they've thrown the ball twice, something went wrong with the game plan, because they do. They line it up and they run it down your throats. Rusty Hatch at quarterback, Craig Yost at fullback. That's a dynamic 1-2 punch for the North Gem Cowboys.
Yeah, Hatch and Yost, run, man. And it's been effective for them, and those two names have been there forever. And that if you can run the ball, you can win games. You can get first downs. It's not too far for a first down if you just bang away. And that's what they're good at.
Yep, it's going to be interesting as North Gem and Rockland grapple with a newcomer to the league in Chalice. The Vikings have dropped down. They successfully petitioned down from 2A to 1A. This was a program that last year was running on fumes. By the time we got to the end of the season, they had suffered a couple of really bad injuries through the course of the season, and it's a program that numbers wise, I think the move was justified. I can also understand if you are a North Gem that's pulling from 50 kids, and you look at Chalice, which has right, and you look at a Chalice which has double or maybe even 2.5 times the amount of students in the school. I mean, I can understand, the smaller schools looking at Chalice going, I don't know if this fits, but for the Vikings, it's not the students in the hallways. It's how many kids came out for the football team.
And that's, as one person said to me, he said, I'm going to have a little bit of a side eye if all of a sudden Chalice has 32 kids out for football this year. And he meant it mostly in jest, but there was a little bit of a poison tip on there. It is a concern when you're talking about, Rockland, which no incoming freshmen. So whatever they have. They may only have 10 kids. Rockland may be at, a dozen or so. And then you get into this school that's drawn off of 100 kids plus. I can see why some people are skeptical. I also see that Chalice has some kids that can play football. So I'm interested to see what they do when they get on the field. When you're talking about Teague Erickson and Regan Dixon and a couple of other guys like that, they've got some kids who can make some plays. And if they can stay healthy, they'll compete. They won't be a pushover. They won't be a walkover, but they're They've got some people who are out to get them. And I don't mean that in a dirty or malicious way, but they're some of the smaller teams are going to be like, okay, you came down here, now watch what's going to happen.
Yep. Mackey had the Bruley boys last year, Palin and Tayson, and I think one was a senior and one wasn't. I might be misremembering. But Mackey, I think, will be a fun team to watch. And then Water Springs, I mean, they're the team that has the most unknown. They did have some sophomores they were leaning on last year. But here's what I do know. Shane Reamer is a pretty good football coach, and Water Springs being picked last, they'll use that to motivate them for sure. So I would say keep an eye on Water Springs. I'd be surprised if they actually finished in 5th place this season. All right, let's go to the Long Pin Conference over in District 3. Our preseason coaches poll: Council 1, Garden Valley 2, Tri-Valley 3, Horseshoe Bend 4, Salmon River 5, Cascade 6. Council was a team last year that a lot of people were saying, hey, this team could go all the way to the championship, and who knows, maybe could give Kendrick a push. Instead, Coach Kirkland, those darn Dietrich Blue Devils went to Council opening round of the playoffs and shell-shocked them and turned away Council pretty convincingly in the opening round. How do you bounce back from something like that? Does that fuel a team all throughout the offseason?
It should be a lesson learned, I hope. And we'll see where they go from there, getting beat that well. But, credit to Dietrich. They're always prepared. Brody had that team rolling and went into town guns a-blazing and did some good work there. But it could be a breakthrough year finally, maybe for Council to go to the next level, to that next semifinal game and see where they end up. I don't know what the carrot is to put in front of those guys, but it's waiting there for them.
New coach this year at Council and J.C. Tucker. I mean, the name Tucker at Council is kind of like Shepherd at Salmon River, right? Well,
it's a name that we've heard before too. I believe he coached basketball there at one point. Maybe he still does. I think
he does. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Council's a team. They graduated some key pieces, but they bring some good pieces back. So I expect them to be in the mix. The team I'm watching is Garden Valley. Head coach Jason Yearsley and Trevor Korn. I think you mentioned his name earlier in the show. If you didn't, I'll mention it now. And I'm going to place some lofty expectations on that guy's shoulder right now. I think if he plays the way he's capable, he's a potential state player of the year candidate. He's that good at linebacker, and he's a guy that could, with no Tacoma Kelly and no Caden Zimmer and some of the other players that have moved on, he's a guy that could get a lot of touches on offense, and he could pile up some numbers, and he's a tremendous linebacker. And that's a nice safety blanket for Coach Yearsley, filling in some younger kids around him. When you got that big bruising fullback that can take a snap and fall forward for 7 yards, that's a real nice luxury to have. And I think he's a kid that could have an outstanding year this year.
Yeah, that's the big question for Garden Valley is who replaces Tacoma Kelly at QB, because otherwise they've got all the pieces in place. And a guy I love for Garden Valley is Trustin Brown, the defensive end. That dude is a menace on that defensive line for sure. Tri-Valley was picked 3rd. They're right there on the edge numbers wise, but Coach Tyler Wagoner brings back Jace Wagoner at quarterback, and they were a feisty team last year. Horseshoe Bend, new coach this year in Richard Byers. Last year, Horseshoe Bend had a lot of offensive firepower, but they also gave up a lot of points. That was kind of the downfall. Yeah,
struggled on defense, and that's something that's going to have to be shored up. But Trey Bauer, a good young man who, just had a really nice season last year. He and Kalen Jones were kind of the two-headed beast. They're going to have to replace their quarterback as well in Horseshoe Bend. So who takes that role, and how much of the load can Bauer carry? Can he be a 25-touch guy? And if he is, because they're having to replace a couple offensive linemen, if he's able to be a 25-touch guy, can he be one of those guys that's putting up 150, 200 total yards of offense per game? If he is, Horseshoe Bend's going to compete with some people.
And then Coach Kirkland, if we look at Salmon River for the first time in a long time, they've got numbers, and they've got a good, strong incoming freshman class. I even heard there's a Shepherd on the team.
Oh boy, here we go again. Yeah, there's a lot of enthusiasm there at Salmon River. All summer long, they're doing something there, and to have 18 on the team, I think the number is going to be exciting for them. and bring some new energy, and they'll build from there. And we may see them in these coming years back in the deep bracket.
Yep. And then Cascade, they've got some good players at the top. Stuart Derrick. They've got Cole Olson, who's a good defensive end running back. But they're kind of like a Tri-Valley where they're right there on the edge numbers wise. They're only an injury or two away from the wheels really falling off. So we hope everybody can stay healthy there in Cascade. And let's wrap up with the North Star League up north, guys, where ironically enough, we're talking 1A football in this 4-team conference. There's only one team that's actually a 1A school, and that's the new guys, Coeur de Christ Academy. They're a private Catholic school up in Coeur d'Alene that they're playing football for the first time ever this year. Otherwise, it's a trio of 2A programs in Wallace and Clark Fork and Lakeside. You might notice, hey, where's Mullen St. Regis? They've had the run of the league the past couple of years. Well, Coach Kirkland, in that arrangement where Mullen and St. Regis co-opt, when it started, Mullen had more players. So the kids from St. Regis would make the trek over the pass and come over from Montana for practice every day, and they would play most of their games in Mullen. Well, that has swung the other way now, where most of the kids are actually from St. Regis. And so Mullen decided, hey, if we have any kids that want to play, we're going to go to St. Regis. We'll go compete over in Montana. And so we'll kind of keep an eye on them from afar this year, but I thought that was the right move for Mullen and St. Regis.
Yeah, as long as kids are playing ball, and that must be a great relationship that they have there, which is really cool. Go for it to be the Montana State champions. Get in the tournament, baby.
You got to watch out for those Chinook sugar beaters. They're always a tough 8-man program over there in Montana. So Will, it really opens up the league, and yet I think this league is Wallace's to lose. They have the most numbers. They have the most high-impact players. Julian Davis is an absolute matchup nightmare, a 6'2" wide receiver who can really elevate. And they've got this freshman quarterback. The buzz has been building around this kid for a couple of summers now. Cooper Miller is his name. I had a coach tell me he could have been the MVP of the North Star League last year as an 8th grader. He went to the Idaho Bowl this summer, the statewide all-star games, and you were there broadcasting those, and he carved up some like 6A and 5A level players.
Oh, yeah. He looked like he belonged. But from a coaching standpoint, we got to keep in mind he's still a freshman. So he's 13, 14 years old. And as a coach, you want to try and protect him as much as you can. And that's where somebody like Julian Davis is invaluable. He's one of the, along with Gomez from Rimrock, who we talked about earlier, he's one of the more underrated players. He's extremely talented. He can do a lot of damage. And if Miller can just forge the relationship, so to speak, I'm sure that they have done that. But if I'm Cooper Miller and I'm in a jam, I'm looking for Julian Davis. I'm looking to get the ball in his hands, let him make the plays. But I do think your overarching point of this being Wallace's league to lose is probably a fair one. I think that's what it looks like on paper. You got Clark Fork, who lost a ton from last year. Just a few players back with real big-time experience, and they're good players, but they just need more time to develop the program. Coeur de Christ, brand spanking new. Kellen Clements, former NFL quarterback, coaching that team. His son, he's coaching that team. His son is quarterbacking the team. It's going to take them a little while to develop. And then Lakeside, they have a new coaching staff that I'll let you talk about a little bit, and coach as well. But they have some talent. They lost a really good player in Quincy Hall, another one of those players that you just wanted to get the ball in his hands and see what he could have happen. So they're going to have to replace that production and just let the team develop. I just think when you're talking about looking at the big picture, if you will, Wallace has maybe more known quantities than the rest of the North Star, and I think that's what gives them a distinct advantage going into the season.
Yeah, Clark Fork only has like 11 or 12 healthy guys right now. That's tricky this time of year for sure. Hopefully they can get some guys back. Lakeside had 18 guys come out for the team, and I think all 18 are going to play right out of the gates. Lakeside and Coeur de Christ play this Friday at the Mariman Health Core Center there in Worley. It is a beautiful turf field, owned and operated by the Core Center, which is owned by the Coeur d'Alene tribe. And it's a great place to take in a football game. We'll be there broadcasting on IdahoSports.com. I will be there in Worley on the call with Ryan Skaggs for that game. It will be the first game ever in the history of Coeur de Christ, which is exciting. It will be the first game for new Lakeside head coach Jerry Louie McGee. He was a standout wide receiver at Lake City High in Coeur d'Alene and then played for my Montana Grizzlies in college, was an FCS All-American punt returner his senior year. And here's what I really liked about him, Coach Kirkland. I went out and visited him at two-a-days, and he told me the goals he outlined for his program. Goal number 1, every player on the team has a cumulative GPA of 3.0, and every senior graduates. Goal number 2, win the conference. Goal number 3, win state. Goal number 4, undefeated season. He said the other 3 goals don't really matter if we can't get that first goal taken care of. I loved hearing that.
There you go. Yeah, student first. That's a great way to set a tone at a school and a community, and especially coming back to that particular town. And if the kids buy into that, they'll be great football players, but greater people.
Yep.
Here's what blows my mind, though, guys. It's a 4-team league, 8-man football, North Idaho. You've got an NFL guy in Clark Fork. You've got an NFL guy at Coeur de Christ. And you've got an FCS All-American at Lakeside. That's crazy.
They should have a football clinic up there, right?
They might know a thing or two.
Yeah, teach us something. That'd be great.
So, I mean, North Idaho is beautiful. Everybody just wants to live here. What can I say? As a North Idaho resident, here's the cool deal with Coeur de Christ and Lakeside and the Coeur d'Alene tribe. Kellen Clemens has gone down and put on football camps the past couple of summers at the Core Center. And so they're actually Coeur de Christ. They don't have a field. They don't even have a practice field. They practice at another Catholic school on an unmarked field. It's just grass. When I went and visited Coach Clemens, he said, yeah, you're looking at our equipment room right here. It was the back of his pickup truck. It just had the shoulder pads and helmets and everything in there. It's a small school. They're looking to expand their campus, but they needed a place to play their games. So they approached the Coeur d'Alene tribe and the Core Center about playing their home games there. And the Core Center basically said, yeah, and since you have come down and done camps for us in the past, and you're a first-year coach and it's a first-time program, we're not going to charge you the fee we would charge somebody to use our facility because we don't want you to start in the hole as a football program. So I thought that was pretty cool of the Core Center to do that as well, Will.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's when you got a great facility like that, it doesn't do anybody any good to have it sitting empty. Get some kids out there, get them running around, get them having some fun and playing ball.
Yep. It'll be a lot of fun for sure. Okay, guys, before we wrap it up here, it's time to make our preseason predictions. And then I'm going to put them in the vault and we'll come back at the end of the season and we will see who was right and who was wrong. I didn't put this in the show rundown because I wanted your raw thoughts here, but I want championship game participants and championship winner at both levels, the 2A and the 1A. We're going to take one more break. So you've got about 30 seconds to figure out what you're going to say.
Do your cartwheels, Coach.
And then we will come back and make our official picks and put them in the vault. So we'll be back to wrap up the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast right after this on IdahoSports.com.
This year, help dreams come true with the Ideal Idaho 529 Education Savings Program. Our easy-to-use tools make it simple to plan for your child's education. With tax benefits, ownership flexibility, Ideal is the perfect way to save for college, trade school, K-12 education, and student loan repayment. Join us at our next webinar to learn more about the 529 plan. Enrolling takes just 15 minutes and you can start with just $25. Visit idsaves.org if you would like to learn more.
All right, welcome back to the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast on IdahoSports.com. It is time for our championship game and championship winner predictions here at the start of the season. Will, I'll go to you first for the Class 2A ranks.
I knew you were going to do that.
What are you going with?
God, dang. I'm gonna go Kendrick over Butte. But there are some serious wild cards in that 2A where both those teams could make it. Neither of them could make it. Who knows? But if you're asking me on August 22nd to plant my flag somewhere, I'm going to go with the team that's been doing it for, it feels like 1,000 years, and that has a ton of talent back. So I'm going to go Kendrick over Butte in what should be, if it's what comes to pass, it should be a heck of a football game.
Coach Kirkland, where are you going?
I'm thinking the same as Will, honestly. Logos came into my head, Kendrick over Logos, but I think Butte County has got the fire in them, and it's going to be a Kendrick over Butte County. Kendrick is loaded.
They are loaded. I've got the same matchup. Kendrick and Butte County. I'm going the opposite way, though.
You guys just copied me.
I wrote this down while we were in the break. Kendrick and Butte, and then I don't want to give away my other pick, so you guys copy it. But I'm going Butte over Kendrick. Last year, when they played in the regular season, that was the game where Dylan Waymeyer, of course, had his near-death experience on the sideline, and Kendrick got out to a huge lead. But I'll tell you what, by the end of that game, Butte County had chipped it down to a one-score game, and so I think that will give them a little confidence taking on this new new opponent in Kendrick. So I'm going Butte County over Kendrick. Okay, 1A picks. I am gonna lead it off here. Because this was the harder one to me, because there's Kendrick is gone, Hagerman's gone. I'm taking Coach Kirkland's Carey Panthers, and I've got
brown noser.
I've got them winning the title over Wallace. Give me Wallace getting to the championship game under a big, strong group of kids, but I'm taking Carey over Wallace. Coach Kirkland, what do you got?
You're the man, dude. You're the man. That's all I say. I'm picking Carey over Genesee. I think Genesee is going to advance there.
Okay, I like
Coach
it.
Podravsky's going to like that call.
And yeah.
Okay, Will, what do you got? 2A or a 1A championship?
I don't know. I feel like I could throw a dart at a dartboard, and it has. I mean, I just think that there's a ton of equity, parity, whatever word you want to choose, in the 1A classification this year. So I'm going to go off the rails a little bit just to get some different teams involved here. I'm going to say Garden Valley Deary for the state championship. And since I hitched my wagon already to Trevor Korn as a possible state player of the year, I'll go with it. And I'll say Garden Valley over Deary in the state championship game. But I mean, God only knows. There are about 12 different 1A teams that have a chance to legitimately make a run in my mind.
It's going to be wide open this year in the 1A ranks for sure. Okay, those are the official picks. I'm putting them in the vault. We'll revisit them at the end of the year and see how smart or dumb we were.
You exposed us so early.
You did.
Yep. All right, we'll wrap up with one final question here. It's from Josh Byers in the chat. Anything good in the fridge, Will?
Actually, we just went to the store, so there's a lot of good stuff in there. We got some fruit in there. We got some juice. We got all kinds of good stuff in there. So come on over. I know you don't live that far away. Come on over. We'll get you hooked up.
All that good healthy stuff, fruit and juice. Yep.
That's the funny thing. Everybody assumes that I vacuum down Doritos or something. I'm a fairly healthy dude. I had tuna fish sandwich today.
That's good. That's a good shit. I think I found our podcast title, Vacuum Down Doritos. That's going to be all right. We have gone super long on this show. I promise from here on out, the shows will be shorter. We had to cover every team. We wanted to give every team at least a little bit of love here on the first show of the season. But
Clark County, go Clark County.
Yes, we didn't mention Clark County. They are playing a JV schedule this year where, again, they're going to play kind of the JV teams, Rockland, North Gem, Mackey, Chalice, and they're going to play six-man football against those schools. So, hey, it's a good way to get those kids up in Du Bois out for the team. I like it. So, all right. Thanks for tuning into the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast, everybody. Enjoy the competitions this weekend, and we will see you back here next Thursday night. We'll do this every Thursday night on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, and X account. So for Will Hoenike and Coach Lane Kirkland, I'm Brandon Baney. Good luck, everybody. We'll see you back here next week for another edition of the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.